Hey there, welcome back to my channel. My name's Katie if you're new here, and I typically make videos about motherhood, adoption, and just general lifestyle content like travel or daily vlogs. If any of that interests you, don't forget to click the subscribe button down below, and you can also click that bell notification button so that you will be notified anytime I make a new video. Today I'm doing my fourth adoption journey update, and we are currently in the 9th month of the adoption process. In terms of, it's really been a lot longer than that, but this is the 9th month that our kids have actually lived with us. So they've been with us for quite a while. The typical time frame is about 6 months of the fostering phase before we adopt. Our kids are being adopted as waiting children through foster care, and they are 6 and 10, and we already have one daughter who is 3 who was adopted about 2 years ago. So if you're wondering, yes, my life is insane because I have 3 kids and they're all different ages and there's just a lot going on all the time. And I realized the last update I filmed was quite a while ago. I think I posted it 3 months ago, but probably filmed it like 4 months ago. So it's been a while, a lot has happened, so I want to do an update. So we're just gonna jump right into the things that have been really hard recently, because one of the things I really believe in doing on this channel is being honest with you about the realities of foster care and adoption. The reason I do this is because I often find that when I'm searching about adoption and foster care on YouTube or online, a lot of really like warm and fuzzy things will pop up, and you'll find these warm and fuzzy adoption videos where, you know, they've met their family and it just seems all perfect and wonderful. And while there are wonderful moments of adopting, it's also filled with a lot of really hard moments. And so I don't want you to ever feel like going into the process that it's just going to be a walk in the park, because then you will be very shocked when it's just not. And that's just not how parenting is in general, but especially when you're parenting kids who have traumatic histories, whether they're adopted as babies or as older kids, there's going to be trauma there. And so it will have an effect on you, it'll have an effect on them, and it will ultimately have an effect on your family. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. There are things we can all learn through that, but I want to share kind of that, what some people may think more negative perspective first, and then I want to jump into some of the really awesome positive things that have been going on. So the first situation that has made me really annoyed is that we had not one, but 2 therapists stop working with one of our kids. And it's not anything our kid did. The first therapist, her role switched within the counseling organization she was with, but she waited until the last session to even tell us that that was happening. And I realized some of that may have been out of her control and all of that stuff, but it was very frustrating. It was very difficult for our kid who has already gone through a lot of losses and been in foster care and all of that. After that, we decided to get a new therapist, and we thought it might be better to look somewhere else because we didn't really love how they handled that. We weren't super impressed with how the counseling was going anyway. We felt like it could have been more productive. And so we found this new counselor. And to be fair, I didn't really love the new counselor personally. Like, if she was my therapist, I would have a really hard time opening up to her. She's just a very prickly personality. And even the secretary kind of warned me of that before we connected with her, but she said she's really good at what she does. She just may not have the personality you're expecting. AKA, she's just not that nice of a person. But actually for our kid who really needs you to be direct, it worked super well. She was very direct and she didn't let people, you know, meander off the topic and all that stuff, which our kid in particular that I'm discussing really needs that, you know, person to be direct with them. And our kid actually really liked working with her. Unfortunately, this counselor retired and didn't tell us again until the very last session, which in that situation, I was very upset because I feel like if you're retiring, you usually have more than a week's notice or 2 weeks notice that you're retiring. Maybe there was a different situation, but she didn't explain anything. Like, she didn't say in the last session, like, oh, I'm really sorry, this was something I decided later. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm retiring, this is the last session. And I was just like so taken aback by that. When our kid has only been working with her for like 2 months, why did she even take on a new client when she's going to be retiring that soon? And why would you take a kid who's been through trauma, who's been through rejection, who's been through abandonment, and just abandon them after they already had that happen with their last therapist? So don't even get me started. I was so upset. And I don't think I'm going to be doing counseling with that group because I just don't trust them. And maybe this is just a theme, but there were other problems too with like communication, and they don't schedule like weekly appointments. You have to like randomly schedule them. And I just don't understand why you would take kids with mental health issues and not give them a regular time that they know they're coming, that they can be prepared for it. I'm not in charge of it though, it's not my job, but that's something I just do not get. So that's been really hard, not only for our child, obviously, but also now I have to find someone new, and it's such a process to find someone new. And so that's what I'm going through right now. Another thing that I've been struggling with lately is I'm just a person that has probably had anxiety my whole life, and everything through adoption and foster care just heightens that like a lot. And so I just, you know, if you're looking into adoption or foster care, it's not like you can't be a good foster parent or adoptive parent if you have anxiety or depression or anything like that. But you should know that it's going to be triggered a lot, especially if your kids also have anxiety or depression or have other issues that, you know, you're thinking about their stuff all the time and you have your own stuff. It's just, it can be a lot. I would say my anxiety over the past like 5 months, 4 or 5 months, has just been way higher than it has probably at any other time of my life that I can remember, at least. And I hadn't been coping with it very well. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I feel anxious for my kids a lot, and I worry that I'm not doing enough. And what this did was this led me to putting these standards on myself as a parent that were absolutely impossible to reach, and then beating myself up when I didn't reach them. As an adoptive parent, sometimes it's easy to feel like we have to make up for our kids' suffering, like because our kids have suffered in the past and they didn't have parents who were there for them or could provide for them in the way that they needed them to, we feel like we have to be perfect. We have to measure up somehow. And I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of messaging even amongst the adoption community that kind of reinforces that, of like, you as the parent, you're the one who needs to be self-regulated. You need to be perfect. You need to be on top of everything. And I think sometimes we fail to remember that like, we're human. We're going to fail. We're not going to be perfect. And sometimes that can be a lot of pressure on a person. And, you know, with kids just are not grateful for things. Like, that's just not really a kid trait often. And especially you find that when kids have been through foster care, or if they've gone through trauma like that, especially if they've never really experienced a normal family upbringing, they're not going to be aware of what's normal. And so their expectations of you may be like way higher than anything you could possibly meet, because they're basing it on what they see on TV or what they just imagine a normal family life to be. So for what that looks like for me is like, if I take my kids to do something special, it's always like, why aren't we doing this all the time? When are we coming back here again? Why are we not coming back here tomorrow? And it's like really just those little things, but it just kind of wears on you. So basically lately I had been feeling like I needed to be every single mother figure that my kids had ever had, and I needed to be me on top of that. Like, I needed to be like their 80-year-old foster grandma who sat on the couch with them and hugged them all day because she didn't have like all these other things to do. I also need to be like their bio mom who bought them like snacks all the time and bought them way too much food from fast food restaurants and just let them eat it all, and who was just like the fun person when she was around for her visits. And I just can't be those people. But at the time I didn't realize that. And at the same time, I also needed to be me. I needed to be the one who helps them with their homework, helps their grades get up, teaches them boundaries, teaches them how to be safe, and helps them do, you know, fun things at school and activities after school, and has them involved at church. And, you know, I felt like I needed to do it all. Basically, I felt like I needed to be everything their mother figures were in the past, and also everything that they weren't. I needed to make up for that. And these impossible standards, I didn't realize how impossible they were until I talked to their foster mom, and she was like, oh, that's crazy. You can't be all those things. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, this is ridiculous. And I'm sure Nick, my husband, will be annoyed because he definitely told me like I needed to be easier on myself. But he's just such a laid back person that sometimes I'm like, oh, he just doesn't get it because he's so chill. But I know he did try. But it was to hear it coming from this foster mom who had all this experience. And she told me, she's like, that's just always what the kids that I fostered have been like. They've never been very grateful for what they're having. And she's like, it's just because of what they've been through. And I was like, I get that. but I feel like I need to make up for everything they've gone through. And she's like, you can't do that. I wouldn't even try. She was just like, you have to do your best. And it was really affirming for me to hear that. And it really started to turn things around for me when I realized that. The other thing that has been pretty difficult for me and for everybody in our family is that one of our kids in particular is just constantly on an emotional roller coaster, just really struggles to regulate their emotions and has been through a lot. And so oftentimes doesn't know how to react and kind of has what most people would view as an overreaction to small issues that go on. So everyone in the family kind of feels like we're walking on eggshells around this person, and it can be really, really difficult because I understand why these behaviors happen, but it doesn't make it easier. And it's just a really fine line to walk to know how to handle it. Like, when do I give grace and compassion and I see where you're coming from? And when do I say, like, hey, you can't bully your siblings. Like, you can't just be mean to people just because something bad happened to you. And it's just really complicated. And I don't always know that I'm handling it the right way. And so that adds to some anxiety and stress that I have. And the problem is the same child has had problems like this at school too. And so we've seen that attitude coming out at school, which can get you in trouble. Thankfully, their teachers have been amazing and so understanding and so trauma informed that it has really helped. And I can't imagine if the teachers were not open to that or weren't being creative in the way that they're dealing with things, that would make it much harder. So I'm very thankful for those teachers. All right, so that's been the hard parts. Now let's talk quickly about the good things. So first of all, I feel like it's been really cool to look back and see how far our kids have come in some things. Like our son, who's like the pickiest eater ever, he has come so far in the foods he eats. When I look back and I think about the stuff he used to eat, he used to only eat basically like chicken nuggets, spaghetti and meatballs in a can, peanut butter and jelly, maybe like a couple other things, but it was very, very limited palate. And when he came and lived with us, we had a lot of like food struggles at first, and we try to be very patient and very slow to have him try new things. But when I look and see all the stuff he eats now, and I'm like, wow, he really has changed a lot in that regard. He's still like the pickiest eater of the kids, but oh my goodness, he's made so much progress. It's just really cool to see and to just realize how far he's come in a lot of ways, especially even emotionally. I think all three of our kids have come so far in the ways that they regulate their emotions. Even like I just said though, you know, even when one of them in particular is still really struggling with that, it's just cool to see how far they've come, even when they're still struggling. And it's never going to be perfect, but I think it's important to recognize these kids have been through a huge, huge life-changing transition, and we're only 9 months in. 9 months feels like a long time, but at the same time, it feels so fast. And they've been able to do that well in that short of a time. That's pretty cool. Also, something that's been really sweet is my youngest two kids. So our daughter, Brielle, who we already adopted a couple years ago, she and our son have just been playing together so well. They're only like 3 years apart in age. And so they've just become little buddies, and they play together, and sometimes they want to sit by each other. Last night our son shared his candy with her. It's just really sweet to see that relationship developing, because at first it just felt like everyone was in competition for mom and dad's attention, and everyone was in competition. And now I feel like they're really becoming close, and that's been really awesome to see the last few months. I feel like we've made a ton of progress in the last few months in that area. I think another area is that I have been really managing my anxiety a little bit better. I'm not going to say a lot better. I've been managing it a little bit better in the past month or so. I still go to counseling. I go to therapy myself, and it's been very helpful for me. I've learned a lot. I've worked through a lot. I still think I have a long way to go, but it has been so good for me to have a space where I can just talk and be open and work through some of that stuff. So I've really enjoyed that, and I think my therapist has helped me get to a point where I can manage my anxiety better so that I can better handle my kids' anxieties. And I've also just felt a lot of benefits from that, because these past several months have been some of the most difficult anxiety months of my life, and I'm just recently kind of turning a corner and feeling a little bit more stable, a little bit less just constantly worrying about everything like I was before. I also think that one real positive to me of having older kids, other than the fact that they can get themselves their own breakfast in the morning sometimes, that's a pretty big positive if you're a toddler parent. I think one of the biggest positives for me, and I mentioned this in the video I posted last week about adopting older kids, is that I love that I can have conversations, like deeper conversations with my kids, and I can ask them how they're feeling, and we can dig into those things and even have conversations after, you know, having to have a hard talk about behavior. I feel like those conversations have gone really well, and I feel like I've handled them pretty well. Like, I'm sure I haven't been perfect, but that's an area where I feel more confident in my parenting, and so I just want to celebrate that that part has been good. And I think that especially our oldest really responds well to those conversations and enjoys me opening up and having and letting her open up as well. And the last one, I just want to give a huge shout out to my friends and family, because especially when I was through that time where I felt like I needed to be everything my kids never had, everything they did have, and I was putting this immense pressure on myself, people really stepped up and gave me a lot of affirmation that I was doing the right thing. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me in those moments when I felt like I was just absolutely failing. I felt completely depleted. I felt like I had no energy left to give anyone, and that I also was failing everyone simultaneously. Like, the effort I was putting in wasn't going anywhere. And those were some really dark and hard times, and I think the thing that pulled me out of it the most was hearing other people remind me of like the truth that I didn't see. And they reminded me, like, you're a good mom. You've been doing so much. I've watched you parent. I've seen the way you interact with your kids. You are doing so much for them. They are growing, they're thriving. And I mean, honestly, like, I just broke down in tears multiple times, like talking to friends and talking to family, because I felt like such a failure. I felt like a complete failure, and I thought everyone else could see it too. And it was just good to hear those people in my community, in my circle, to say, no, like, here's the truth. This is how you're really doing. And we see you and we see what you're doing. And I cannot tell you how much that meant to me. So if you know adoptive families already, if you know foster families, if you can say any words like that to them, it would mean the world to them. I guarantee. I think anyone, even if they're not like a words of affirmation person, which that's not like my top love language, but I think because, you know, you don't get that affirmation from your kids very often, it's nice to hear it from an outside source. And I say these things not to tell you like how amazing of a parent I am. Believe me, like, I struggle to believe that I'm doing a good job, but I say this for those of you who are like me, who try so hard and feel so depleted and feel like you're failing everyone. You're probably not failing. You're probably doing a really great job, and you probably just don't see it, but I bet you that other people do see it. And so I just want to tell you, you're doing great. Keep going. You can do this. And I'm saying this to myself as well. And so, yeah, that's just something I think was so life-giving to me, was to hear those comments and to realize that not everyone saw it the way that I saw it. So there you have it. There are pros and cons of what has been going on lately. One other thing I wanted to say is that we do not know yet exactly when we're going to be able to adopt our kids, but they have been with us 9 months already. Typically, it's a 6-month period of waiting before you end up adopting. If you're not sure how waiting child adoptions work, I'm gonna link my video above, because I made a video about that a while ago. It's probably the most popular video on my channel to date, but just explaining how that whole process works. Now, our kids are a legal risk adoptive placement, so we knew going into the process that it could drag out longer due to legal processes, and the courts are obviously probably moving pretty slow right now due to COVID, and so we're kind of waiting to hear. We were actually told last month we were going to be able to move forward with the adoption very soon. And I almost told the kids, and then like the next day after I was gonna tell them but ran out of time because I wanted to plan this big elaborate thing to tell them, we found out that it was delayed. So I'm so thankful to God that he did not allow us to tell them, because I think that would have really been disappointing to them to hear you're gonna be adopted and be like, never mind, we have to wait. So That's where our case is right now. I cannot wait until I can announce to you that we are officially a family of 5, and as I get more updates, I'll be sure to share them on our channel as well. Overall, I think things have been going well. I think the kids have been doing really well. I have been struggling a bit, but I'm kind of coming out of that. I don't want to say I'm totally out of that, but I am better than I was a few weeks ago, so I'm going to hang on to that. But I just want to say thank you so much for following along with our journey and watching this. If you haven't gotten a chance yet to watch my previous updates, you can go to my adoption playlist and you can find those videos as well. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button so that more adoptive and foster families or potential adoptive and foster families can find my video. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe so you can hear hopefully a very exciting update soon with me saying we can officially adopt them, because I cannot wait to make that video eventually. And before I go, I just want to say if you have any fun video ideas or things you'd like to know more about, go ahead and put your ideas in the comments. I do want adoption themes, but I also would love some non-adoption themes, because I love making adoption videos, but sometimes it just gets to be like a little heavy or a little much. So I'd like to sprinkle in some other topics as well. So anything you think you'd be interested in, whether it was like a clean with me type of thing, or, you know, talking about something random like a hobby I do, or I don't know, if you want a story time video where I tell a story from something going on with our adoption or our life, I'd be happy to do that. Give me the ideas of what you'd like to see the most. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're having an awesome week.